you're joining live. Hello everyone. Cool. Welcome. I'm so excited to be chatting with everyone today. Today we're going to be talking about a few somewhat potentially controversial things, but it's really important to have this information. So awesome. Today we're going to be talking about what your doctors likely aren't really telling you about your never-ending bloating and digestive issues due to a lack of integrating the new science. You know, on average, it typically takes about 17 years for new research to get into actual traditional medical practice. That's 17 years. So chances are things have changed, right? And chances are we've learned more too since then, right? Because new science and research is constantly coming out. So we're kind of going to be talking about that. And the reason why I bring this up is I don't hate on doctors. Doctors are incredible and they're so full of knowledge and they're absolutely necessary. But I bring this up because a lot of my students, by the time they come to me, have seen multiple doctors. So on average, probably 3, potentially even 4. Family physicians, primary care physicians, gastroenterologists, the list goes on. And they still don't have any answers. And a lot of women that go through my program literally say, why didn't anyone tell me this before? Why didn't my doctor tell me this before? Why didn't the nutritionist that I hired tell me this before? The dietitian, no one told me this, right? So I want to make sure that you guys have these answers and you have this knowledge so you don't have to prolong this process. And honestly, it gets me really fired up. Hi Sharon, please say hi if you guys are hopping on. It gets me really fired up because it leaves you all suffering longer, and that makes my blood boil. So I want you to get these answers because I want you to feel better. I know what it's like to be suffering. Okay, awesome. So if you are new and you're just hopping on and you have no idea who I am, my name's Hannah. I'm a certified holistic health coach. I specialize in gut health and I help women all around the world really get a hold of their digestive issues and repair their gut health without starving, without juice fasting, without eating foods that they hate, and all of that kind of stuff. We don't need any of that, right? So I'm so happy to have you here. And this is especially for you if you feel like you've tried everything and you feel like you've seen multiple people and gotten no answers. Yeah. So once again, if you're on this live, please say hi in the comments. I love meeting all of you. So let's just dive in. Yeah. First and foremost, did you know that digestive complaints are the #1 reason why people go to the doctor? That it doesn't shock me, but it fascinates me that this is a huge issue, and please know that you're not alone with this. Digestive issues are everywhere, and this is once again the #1 reason why people see their doctors, is to get answers to these questions. And likely, hi Cassandra, and likely the doctors don't really have answers for them. So this is why I'm doing this, yeah? Okay, so let me know if this sounds a little bit like you. You've gone to the doctor, you've gotten a colonoscopy, right? You've gone in for some bad digestive issues, some bloating, stomach pain, maybe diarrhea, constipation, maybe something else in there. You feel like you're not digesting things properly, your stool isn't normal, maybe you have a bunch of food sensitivities. You go into the doctor, they perform a colonoscopy, they do an endoscopy maybe, and everything comes back fine. They don't find anything. They don't know what to tell you. Maybe they tell you to eat a bit more fiber, start taking Metamucil, drink more water. Maybe it's all in your head. Maybe you're just really stressed. Let me know if that sounds familiar to you. These are all, I bring these up because this is all what my students have told me, right? This is what their doctors have said to them. My students have ran out of their doctor's offices crying. They've had their eyes rolled at them, right? And I just also want to point out that a statistic literally says that on average it takes when you're in the doctor's office, there's about 18 seconds before the doctor interjects and cuts you off and stops listening to you and just goes ahead and diagnoses or does a test or administers something without really taking a deep listen at what you have going on. Yeah. How frustrating is that? This is not the way that it should be, right? It's really because the whole model is messed up, right? We go by insurance. Doctors have on average like 3 minutes in the room with you. Everyone's packed, they're burnt out, they're overworked, all of this stuff. So the current model is really failing us. But that's not really what I want to talk about today, but that's part of the issue. That's part of the reason here, right? Pam says, that was me 15 years ago, yet found nothing. Yeah, totally. So please know that there is a reason for this, and what I want to help you do is uncover the reason for this, right? Because you didn't just wake up one day with bloating or constipation or stomach pain and it just came out of nowhere and you have to live with it for the rest of your life. That's just not the case, right? It doesn't work that way. This is probably something that has been happening over time, getting progressively worse and worse. It's a chronic thing. It could be an acute thing if you had like a strong case of food poisoning or something like that. It can come on more drastically then, but it's usually having been built up over time. My whole point is you don't need to live with this for the rest of your life. There's a reason for this, and we want to uncover the reason. So let me pull up my notes here because I have lots to cover for you guys today. So let me know, does that sound like you? 2 years ago, it was an IBS diagnosis. Yes, Pam. Pam, you need to make sure that you are on my next I'm doing a Facebook Live, Instagram Live next week, and I'm talking all about IBS. And please, if you have not seen my posts about this already on my page, go look. IBS is not an actual diagnosis. It doesn't make sense. Please, literally look at my post yesterday. It doesn't make sense. We need to uncover what's causing it. IBS is just a grouping of symptoms. It is not an actual cause. It is not the root cause of your issues. So saying that you just have IBS doesn't even make sense. It's basically saying that your bloating and stomach pain and digestive issues are because of your bloating and stomach pain and digestive issues. We're missing why. We're missing the why. We're missing the cause, right? And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So, okay, let's see. Like I said, unfortunately, every single one of my students really deals with this before they find my good gut formula. So I've had students that have gone to see multiple gastroenterologists, the best ones in town, right, with no answers. And why this really annoys me is because you guys aren't getting the results. You're left totally frazzled and overwhelmed. You're left leaving frantically Googling everything on your own, trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, right? And good on you for taking your health into your own hands and doing your own research. You're spending tons of random money on supplements you don't even know are going to work. We've got apple cider vinegar gummies, we've got probiotics, right? Digestive enzymes, all of these things, but you still have no actual plan. Maybe you hop into Facebook groups, maybe you hop into random blogs reading other people's experiences and stories, right? And you're like, okay, cool, this sounds like me, or maybe this could help me, right? And you start piecing it together, but you don't have an actionable plan that's rooted in science and guidance, right? So it's totally overwhelming, and some of us are left too overwhelmed to even make a move, right? It's like analysis paralysis. We're like, okay, so it's low FODMAP, or it's paleo, or it's keto, or maybe it's a parasite, or maybe it's this, and then we're so overwhelmed we just make no moves. Of course, right? How do we really integrate all this information and get an actual plan, and find out what's causing it within us, within our body, right? Because just because something works for someone else doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. So we have to take a deeper look at this, and this is where your answers lie, right? So a colonoscopy and endoscopy is going to show certain things. I'm not saying that they are unnecessary. They're totally necessary. Arguably, I think you should be able to get one even younger, even earlier, covered by your insurance, right? Because you have to hit a certain age before you get one. These things are totally important. I'm not trying to minimize their importance. They detect things. They totally save lives by detecting things like colon cancer. They are also needed. But what happens when you are experiencing all of these symptoms and you get these tests done and they show nothing, but you still have all these symptoms, it just means we have to dig deeper. And this is where a lot of doctors don't go, right? There's other testing that can show us other things that's happening. We have to dig deeper as to what is happening in our gut. So things that I'm big on getting to the root cause, right? Get to the root cause. So this is the analogy that I always use because I think it's really easy to integrate and understand. So if you step on a tack and you can take a Tylenol, an Advil, right? It's going to minimize the pain. It's going to decrease the swelling. You're going to be able to walk around maybe a little easier. The pain's going to go away, right? But in order to actually fully heal, you need to take the tack out of your foot. You have to remove the tack from your foot, right? The tack is what's causing this pain. The Advil, the Tylenol, the whatever you want to do, whatever you want to take, will help temporarily. But what happens if you don't get the tack out of your foot? You could develop an infection. The pain's never actually going to go away. It's probably going to get worse, right? Walking's going to get a little bit harder down the line. So we have to get to that root cause, being the tack, remove that so everything else can really fall into place. So your body can begin to heal itself here, right? Your body is designed to feel really good and vibrant and healthy. We just have to figure out why it's not feeling this way, which doesn't mean because you have IBS, because that doesn't tell us anything, right? That's not enough. We have to figure out why you're having these symptoms, get to the root cause, and it's because there's a gut health issue, right? So what these tests, once again, that are valuable are not showing is, let's see here, they're not showing if there's a bacterial imbalance, right? If there's something like dysbiosis, if you have an overgrowth of the bad bacteria, or you don't have enough of the good bacteria, these tests are not going to show these things. This alone can cause massive bloating, digestive issues, stomach pain, leaky gut, right? Once again, leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability. This is another cause, right? This can also lead to all of these symptoms, but these tests won't show these things. You could have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which is an overgrowth in the small intestine as opposed to the large intestine, the colon, right? So when you take something like probiotics, you want those good bacteria, those good gut bacteria, to be residing in the large intestine or the colon. The small intestine should be relatively sterile, right? When things aren't moving through well enough, when we have an issue with motility due to stress, physical obstruction, maybe food poisoning, maybe we had an eating disorder in the past, maybe we're not producing enough stomach acid, then we can get an overgrowth in that small intestine. So we have to look deeper to find out what is the root cause of these, right? So it could be leaky gut, which is the state of that gut lining. If you don't know what I'm talking about, please take a look at my profile. I have tons of information on leaky gut. We need to rebuild that gut microbiome. Once again, we may need to feed those good bacteria, get in more of those good bacteria. We may have an overgrowth of the bad bacteria, something like dysbiosis. We need to get rid of these bad bacteria, not necessarily with an antibiotic, maybe with some herbals, right? Maybe with some really strong and potent herbs that are more like picking the weeds out of the garden instead of setting the entire garden on fire, right? So if you have an overgrowth of weeds, one way that you could get rid of those weeds and get rid of everything is just to set the whole thing on fire, right? Very useful, very effective for getting rid of those weeds. But we get rid of everything when we get rid of those weeds. That's kind of what an antibiotic does, right? What we can do is kind of prune it, do it a little bit more delicately with something like herbal supplements. And that, instead of wiping everything out, can wipe only the bad guys out, right? Maybe a few of the good guys, but less damage. One thing that these tests will also not show are parasites. If we have an underlying parasite, if we have an overgrowth of yeast, something like a candida overgrowth, right? All of us naturally have candida in our gut anyway, but we can get an overgrowth of it. That can cause a whole host of issues, skin issues, acne, bloating, yeast infections, recurring yeast infections, right? What these tests also won't show us, what are you putting into your body every day? I literally had someone that went to their gastroenterologist, and their gastroenterologist said to them that the food that they eat would make no difference. I don't know how that's possible when the food that you eat literally goes inside of your body and gets entirely processed by your digestive system. So if we are putting this stuff actually physically in our bodies every single day, and it's being processed by our digestive system, how would it make any sense that the food that we eat would not impact our digestive function? Doesn't make any sense to me. If you're on my same team, please let me know. Also, there was a gastroenterologist that said to someone that they actually didn't take a look at any stool testing. So if we are not taking a look at the food that goes in, what comes into the body, or what goes out of the body, that stool, then what are we even looking at? Like, what are they even looking at? I don't understand, right? And I'm going to get into stool testing in a bit. I think it's really, really, really valuable. It gives us so much more information than something like a colonoscopy. Once again, colonoscopies are still good. I'm not trying to hate on them. I just want you to get the answers that you need and understand that there are more tools that you can utilize to get these answers. Okay, what these tests also don't show us are what kind of state is your body in? What kind of state are you in when you're eating? What are your cortisol levels like, right? So there have been many studies that show that our cortisol levels can rip apart. Rip apart is maybe not the right phrasing. So the cortisol can take those tight junctions that we have along our gut lining, right, that I talk about so often because it's so important, and start to pull them apart. Pull them apart sounds a little better than rip them apart, right? Pull them apart, creating that increased intestinal permeability, or what I like to call leaky gut because it's just like a bit easier to understand. Cortisol will do that. Are we stressed out? Are we in that sympathetic nervous system state? Most of us exist in it. Most of us are living in the sympathetic nervous system state, right? If you're like, what are we even talking about? Please let me know. I'll break that down for you a little bit more. But stress can literally cause that, right? Taking a look at our cortisol levels. So if we have increased cortisol all day, every day, or most of the day, our gut is, we are going to create leaky gut, right? With leaky gut comes systemic inflammation. Systemic inflammation, we can kind of understand, doesn't sound so good, right? What that looks like in your body can be bloating, can be gas, can be digestive issues, acne, migraines, joint pain, autoimmune conditions eventually, right? Because that immune system starts to kind of attack itself. It is cross-firing, it is like not registering things properly, so then it starts to attack itself. That's what happens when something like this goes on and on for so long. Really, really dangerous, right? So it's important that we get to the root cause of these issues before they turn into something that are going to take more of our effort and time to overcome. And I really also wanted to touch on things like, you know, I was working with another doctor, and we were talking to some of his patients about some gut issues that they were having, some health issues that they were having, and he was giving them like large amounts of omega-3s, and omega-3s are awesome. If you have my Gut Health Guide to Happiness, you know that I love a good omega-3 to help decrease inflammation in the system. Really supportive of hormone health, brain health, gut health, all of that. But if we're just prescribing high levels of omega-3s to tame inflammation, what we're missing here is what's causing the inflammation. Does this make sense to you guys? Let me know. If not, I can break it down more. It's going back to that tack analogy, right? So it's like omega-3s are awesome, don't get me wrong, but we still want to make sure that while we are taking them, we're dealing with the root cause of the issue. It's like if you're just taking a bunch of turmeric, but like you haven't put out the fire yet, right? We need to put out the fire and bring in these other things. So there are multiple pieces. Awesome, I'm glad this is making sense. There are a few pieces to the puzzle, right? So that's also why when people are like, well, comment on my things or DM me like, what can I do for this? I'm like, girlfriend, it's a process, you know? I don't want to give you information so you think that you can just take one thing and it's all going to go away. You're not going to get the results that you want. And that's where a lot of people waste a lot of time and a lot of money buying these random things, trying one thing, trying the other thing, but not really piecing it together in a holistic and comprehensive program. That's what I teach, right? So we take all of these pieces of the puzzle. We take the bacterial overgrowth, we take the gut lining, we take the lack of digestive enzymes and stomach acid, we take the foods that are causing inflammation, right? We address all of these things, stress, movement, happiness, joy, these all play a part. I wish I had like bubbles around my head so I could crown them for you guys, but we address all of this stuff to take care of your gut health and really overcome your digestive issues in a holistic way. It takes more than just a probiotic, it takes more than apple cider vinegar, it takes more than just an elimination diet, right? We have to take into account all of these different pieces of the puzzle. So, I'm glad this is making sense to you. So what testing may be more helpful for you to get some answers, right? So after we've had the colonoscopy, after we've had the endoscopy, like then what happens, right? I remember this one woman reaching out to me, and she had been in and out of the hospital multiple times. And she had driven 5 hours to go to Johns Hopkins. She had been struggling for so long, and no one had ever tested her for SIBO. They said everything was fine. She went in there, and she was literally being fed through a tube at this point. She was getting like IV drips. She couldn't digest anything. It was so bad. And the first thing I asked her was, "Did you get tested for SIBO?" And she was like, "Hannah, no." And finally, years into this experience, she went to the integrative, holistic, practitioner on the corner, and they were like, "I think we should get you tested for SIBO." There's something causing this. It's not just in her head, right? But they weren't seeing anything through this other testing. She had SIBO. She had really bad SIBO. We adjust her SIBO. She got better, right? So another test that could be more helpful for you is a SIBO breath test, right? The SIBO lactulose breath test. If you suspect you have SIBO, if you've already addressed these other things, right? So if you're already eating in a relaxed state, if you feel bloated after every single meal almost immediately, if you're having issues going to the bathroom, right? There are other signs that you can have SIBO. If you've tried a low FODMAP diet and your body and your symptoms have decreased, that can also be a sign. If you've taken a probiotic and it's actually made you worse because it's feeding that bacteria when we already have a ton of that bacteria. These are all kind of some signs that help us piece the puzzle together. Then this test may be useful for you. A stool test. This is what I really love. In a stool test, we can see what kind of bacteria you have. If you have something like H. pylori, E. coli, if you don't have enough of the good bacteria, how many short-chain fatty acids is your body producing? Short-chain fatty acids are the byproduct of your prebiotic foods feeding those good bacteria, and short-chain fatty acids like butyrate are really anti-inflammatory. So you can be experiencing symptoms purely because you're not producing enough short-chain fatty acids, which if we once again get to the root cause of that, you're not eating the correct foods, you're not nourishing your gut microbiome properly with the right foods, with the good prebiotics, all of that kind of stuff. So a stool test will show us all of that. It'll show us our levels of yeast. It'll show us if our gut lining is inflamed. This can be another really useful test. Once again, this is not going to be shown by these other tests. What else? Another test that could be useful for you is a hair trace mineral analysis test. So this is going to show you if you have an imbalance of heavy metals, if you have heavy metal toxicity, if you're deficient in certain minerals like magnesium, really important. This can be another one that's really important. Potassium can sometimes cause digestive issues, not having potassium but not having enough, having really low levels. And then also food sensitivity testing in some cases. So I've talked about this before, but if you're new here, I'll break it down really quickly. But food sensitivity testing isn't my first go-to for many people, because when we have something like leaky gut, we can get a food sensitivity test back, and it can show us that we have a million different sensitivities, right? When in fact it's because all of these sensitivities are popping up because we have leaky gut. It's not because we're actually sensitive to those foods. It's that our body is false triggering a reaction and a sensitivity to those foods because they're breaking through that gut lining and flowing into the bloodstream, causing that systemic inflammation. So it's not necessarily the foods, but it's the fact that we have leaky gut. So my take on it, sometimes it can be helpful, but sometimes people get these food sensitivity tests back. And just know this for yourself, use your own intuition here. But sometimes people get these food sensitivity tests back, and then they are terrified to eat a ton of foods. You don't need to live that way. You shouldn't be living that way, right? Especially if they're healthy foods like kiwi and oats and kale and chickpeas, right? These are really whole, natural, from the earth, plant-based foods, yeah? And we should be able to eat these. Of course, we'll all have our random different allergies and things like that, but we want to get you to the point where you can enjoy these foods. So if you're someone you would get this food sensitivity test back, and it would show, if it showed you a lot of things, you'd be terrified to eat them. I think it's mentally and emotionally damaging, to be completely honest. I think you need to go through a thorough gut repair, reset, re-inoculate that gut with the good bacteria, repair that good gut lining, tame down the inflammation before we go into testing like this. we can take out some of those foods that are really commonly inflammatory, like gluten, like dairy, like processed foods, refined sugars, trans fats, things like that. This is what my online program does. We take out these foods that are commonly known to promote inflammation, to tick a lot of people off. We restore that gut lining, we re-inoculate that gut with good gut flora, we relax the system through stress management practices, we get our mind on our side, we work with our mindset, and we do it all while eating delicious food. And that's where we see our digestive issues actually go away. It's not just taking Metamucil, it's not just drinking more water, right? We have to look at everything that's going on in the gut. So those are some other tests that could be helpful for you. So once again, what you need to do to really finally get some digestive relief for good here is what I just said, and I'll recap it really quickly. So I like to follow my good gut repairing process. Step one is going to be remove. I have an Instagram post that breaks this all down for you too. So please, if you're like, this sounds like what I need, go take a look at it or shoot me a DM. But first and foremost, we have to remove those common toxic trigger foods. This brings in the elimination diet, really. But please know that it's not just the elimination diet. That won't be enough for someone that's really struggling. It can bring us some relief initially, but it's just one part of the process, right? So we take out these really commonly toxic trigger foods, alcohol, sugar. We know those aren't good for us, right? Dairy, gluten, peanuts. There's some other foods that we take out as well there. And then we remove those, right? We also want to remove the bad bacteria in the gut that's overpopulating the gut, that's causing the dysbiosis. We do this with high quality targeted supplements. Certain herbs help us take these out. Then we want to replace. It's just as important to replace the good food, replace the foods that we're eating with the good, healthy, like gut healthy foods. Just as important to do that as it is to remove the ones that are triggering us, right? So we want lots of polyphenols. We want lots of healthy fats, anti-inflammatory fats. We want lots of good fiber, good prebiotics, lots of blood sugar balancing combinations, right? My entire cookbook is based on this. It's all gut healthy foods. It's all really to optimize blood sugar levels. So just as important to bring the good stuff in as it is to take the less supportive things out. We also want to replace the enzymes, the digestive enzymes, the stomach acid, right? That we are likely, when we have a gut issue, when you've been dealing with bloating, digestive issues for a while, you would likely benefit from a digestive enzyme because it helps take a little bit of the stress off your body. And you've probably started producing less digestive enzymes over time because your body's just like, what's going on? It's not functioning at its optimal level, right? So bringing something like that in short term can be really, really helpful, especially if you've been really restrictive of food in the past. It can be extra helpful there. Then we want to restore the gut lining, right? We do this through targeted supplements and really good, important quality foods. We also want to re-inoculate the gut with good bacteria. We do this with targeted probiotics, right? I like to use certain probiotics. They don't all work. I don't buy ones off the shelf at Whole Foods. That's not what I would use. We want to make sure they're actually getting into the gut, getting into the large intestine, populating there, and we want to make sure that we're feeding them the right things so they actually stick around, or else we're just going to bring them in and we're going to poop them right out. And it's just really expensive poop. It's not really doing you any good, right? So we want to make sure that we're feeding them there, we're growing that garden, we're really fertilizing that garden, increasing that gut bacteria diversity. And we want to connect. We want to connect to our joy, to our purpose, to our own strength, to our own resilience, because anyone that's undertaken this or has been fighting their own bodies, at war with their own bodies, dealing with digestive issues for a long time, knows that it's just as much mindset as it is physical changes, right? You have to be in for this. So we work on your mindset as well. We work on making this process enjoyable for you. And then we also want to relax your system. We want to bring down cortisol levels. We want to eat in a really relaxed state. Our bodies cannot digest food when we're in a state of stress. Our digestive system literally shuts off. Our body also cannot heal, it cannot enter this deep healing state when we're in that sympathetic nervous system state or that fight, flight, or freeze state. So it's really, really important to take all of this into account. It can sound like a lot of things, but that's why I have a program that lays it all out for you. It can sound a bit overwhelming at first, but it doesn't need to be that way, right? So that's really what needs to happen here. If you have gone to the doctor and you've gotten the testing and they're like, everything looks fine, or try taking some Metamucil, or drink some more water, right? And you're like, what? I'm in so much pain. I am embarrassed to go out. I don't want to put on pants. They're too tight on my bloated belly. My skin's starting to freak out now. My stomach dictates my entire day. I'm terrified to eat anything. In fact, like worried that it's going to ruin my day. I'm developing all of these food sensitivities, right? Like this was my life. I understand the pain. I have literally experienced this pain myself, where what I ate that day consumed my entire thought. All of my thoughts consumed my entire day because I was afraid it was going to ruin my whole day, right? If I wanted to go out with friends that night, I'd be afraid to eat anything. If I wanted to put on jeans that night, wear some new jeans, I'd be afraid to eat anything because of how it was going to make me feel, how bloated it was going to make me. The list goes on and on. So I hear you if this is you. If this sounds like you, let me know in the comments. We can get you some help, yeah? So cool. That's kind of what I wanted to cover today, you guys. And now I'm going to take some questions. So feel free to pop your questions in the comments here. And let's see. I know I got some questions on here, so I'll take a look. Okay, I'm trying to scroll back, y'all. Okay, feel free to pop in more questions as I'm going. We've got 2 years ago was an IBS diagnosis. Yep, we talked about that. Why IBS is really nothing. Maybe I should do that next. COVID anxiety right now. Yeah, it's real. It's very real. So we really have to make sure we have those stress management practices in place to actually make a difference here. So we actually have a chance at healing, right? Does insurance cover it, or what the average cost of hand? That was me. For the testing, insurance sometimes covers it. If you see a doctor that you like, that listens to you, that respects you, that cares about you, then ask them if they'll send for one of these tests. Sometimes they'll roll their eyes at you. I hope your doctor doesn't do that. If not, I am so excited to announce that this next round of my online course, Healing Guts and Shaken Butts, is going to actually offer the ability to get some testing as well, because I've brought on one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Saima Bhatti. She's incredible. She has this like intuitive knowing that is unmatchable, and she's a doctor of Oriental medicine, and through her we've been able to get you guys access to testing here, get access to the stool testing, get access to this hair trace mineral analysis testing, food sensitivity testing that can also identify if you have like a candida overgrowth, something like that. So really, really excited that we'll now be able to offer this to you as well. This is huge for us. She's incredible, and she's going to also be inside of the Healing Guts and Shaken Butts community in this online course, because a big part of this course is community, doing this with other people that are going through the same thing as you. And she's going to be in there as well, answering questions and all the good stuff. So, hey Hannah, I was wondering if it's possible for us to do one-on-one with you, or no. If so, how? Go ahead and shoot me a DM. So too much probiotics could cause loose stool. Is this a question? Potentially. That's amazing. How do you do this not in Florida? That's a great question. So with the testing, we can send you the testing, because I deal with people all over the place. So we can send you the testing kit. It's an at-home kit. Usually it's like dried blood spots, so you'll just prick your finger, unless the SIBO test we're not doing right now, but once again, we can find a lot through that stool test. Prick your finger at home, send it in, and then you can schedule an analysis with Dr. Saima, and she can go through the specifics with you as well. Really exciting. Okay, Rupa asks, what probiotics do you recommend? I'm happy to put in some of my favorites. There's a link, if you go to my Instagram, you can go to the link in my bio, and you'll see my my gut healthy like essentials, and I have some of my favorite probiotics in that link right there, so you can literally just click on them. But I like spore-based probiotics, or soil-based organism probiotics, because I think that they're so there's so much to be given to us through the soil that we are not getting enough of right now. And I like spore-based because they usually make it into that large intestine and they bypass the small intestine, so there's a less chance of them feeding any overgrowth that we have in the small intestine. But once again, I would also like to say that probiotics not going to fix everything, right? Can be really, really helpful, not going to fix everything, even though a lot of them are marketed to do so. And we want to make sure that they're actually getting past the stomach acid, that they're actually making it into the large intestine, that we are feeding them properly, or they will not stick around and you will be wasting your money. And what else do we want to make sure with probiotic? And I wanted to say as well that our gut has trillions of bacteria, right? Like, we are comprised of so many bacteria. A 12-strain probiotic, a 20-strain probiotic, whatever it may be, a single-strain probiotic is not going to be enough. We can't match the trillions of bacteria that are in our gut, right? So one of the other amazing ways to really enhance our gut microbiome is to get outside, get into different environments, go on a hike, go to the beach, go to these other environments, and literally have your system take in through the soil, through the environment around us, these different bacteria, because bacteria are all around us all the time. And the more exposed we are to them, then we can kind of like bring them into our system, nourish them, all of that good stuff. So it's not just about the probiotic. I just want you to know that so you actually get the results that you've been trying to get. Any last minute questions, you guys, before I hop off? Let me know. I'm excited to say that Healing Guts and Shaken Butts will be opening soon again, probably for the last time this year. And this is my online course where I walk you through everything that I said today. And you do it in community, you do it with my support. Now you have the support of Dr. Saima. It's going to be freaking awesome. And it's totally virtual. And it's available for really everyone, and especially for the woman who feels like she's tried everything, who is over the really restrictive diets, and who is really, really needing some answers. Okay. Hello, you guys. Cool. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to hop off. And if you guys have any other questions, if you feel really like it's too personal, just go ahead and shoot me a DM. And we can get you some answers and get you some help. Yeah, and if you're interested in getting on the wait list, we already have like 10 people on the wait list for Healing Guts and Shaken Butts for the next round, which is incredible. It's because I haven't even really said that it'll be opening until just now. But if you're interested in getting on that wait list and snagging your spot, securing your spot, then just go ahead and shoot me a DM and we can get you on that wait list. Awesome. Cool, you guys. Happy Wednesday. Any other questions, send them my way. And remember to tune into my next lives too. I'm going live all month covering all different topics on gut health to really help you guys get some answers and make some progress in your health journey. Okay. All right. Have a good one, you guys. Bye.